find out from other entrepreneurs what happened in their business when they came to that crossroads and they had to decide, yes, I'm an entrepreneur, or no, I'm letting this go and going back to a job. So today, my very special guest is Bernie DeSantis. I met Bernie maybe a little over a month ago, right in Fort Worth when I spoke there. And
Right.
Bernie was one of the speakers too. By the way, I voted for you.
Thank you.
Right? You had the best talk up there. So Bernie is a training, works for a company, owns a company,
Owner.
Insignia Training Partners, where Bernie, I'm not going to do you justice, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself here. But tell us
Awesome.
again what you do.
Thanks, Gene. So Insignia Training Partners is a full-service learning and development company. We provide fractional or contract resources to other organizations who have learning and development needs, and we specialize in the virtual delivery space.
Awesome. I love that. So, as I like to always start, Bernie, it's like, what was your milk crate moment?
I'll tell you, Gene. I'm actually the second owner of the company, and so a lot of the things that happen as part of my organization, I kind of inherited, right? So I just kind of took over with a process that was already running. And one of the things that my predecessor really prided herself on was the fact that she never spent any money on marketing or advertisement. Me being a little bit younger guy, I was like, well, maybe we should, be on social, and maybe we should be here and we should be there. And started throwing a little bit of money around, and rebuilt my website, and did all of the things that I thought were going to bring us into this century, only to find that there were a lot of parts and pieces that I was missing. Things like my marketing message wasn't really as in tune as it needed to be. And so I found myself kind of floundering at the beginning of this year. Well, let me back up a little bit. When I first took over, the first year in business, we did almost 1.1 million in sales. And I was like, hey, fantastic. I'm doing really, really well. January of this year came around, and obviously the economy has been, a little bit less robust than it was in the prior year. And I lost several very large clients just because the first thing that typically goes when the economy gets tough is learning and development. So I was really struggling to focus on business development and get new clients. And I would say roughly around February, March, I was in a negative cash flow situation, and it was not looking like it was going to get any better. So what I did was I started networking, just really kind of taking a page out of my predecessor's book. She built the business on word of mouth and referrals and her network. And once I started networking, and not just networking, but networking the right way, with the intent of giving first before I try to get, I started to see things turn around. Not only did I start to connect with people that I would not have otherwise had the opportunity to speak with, I was able to really add value to those people just through the conversations. But then on top of that, the services that I offered, there were absolutely a few moments in there where I was like, did I make the right decision buying this company? Did I get taken to the cleaners?
Mm.
Because again, she didn't believe in spending money on marketing or advertising. The company was really built on her and her reputation. So I had to very quickly find a way to replace the business that was no longer there as a result of the economy. And once I started networking and joining particularly Success Champions Networking, and talking with Donnie Bovin about how to network appropriately, things started to immediately turn around. In fact, at the business summit that you and I attended, I was actually able to pull 2 clients from that, just again through networking, just by having those intimate conversations with people and not trying to pitch them, which was really felt very counterintuitive, but it worked.
Well, I love that. And you said a couple things that were really interesting. And I want to make sure that people heard them. Number one, you said that when the economy started to tank or got hinky here, that people started pulling back on their training dollars. But it's not even so much just training dollars. When the economy gets soft, people, the first thing they pull back on is their marketing. And it's
Mhm.
the last thing that they should pull back on, in my opinion. And listen, I've had a company where I had employees, and I would have fired let's say laid off, right? I would never fire them, but I would have laid off every employee before I stopped my marketing.
Mhm.
because it's in your marketing that people hear about you. It's in your marketing where you stay in front of people. And because every small business does that, you're the only one in that space then, right?
Yep.
So I think that, when you said that about your with the training companies, if you kept your marketing up, and networking is a marketing. I
Absolutely.
don't think a lot of people think about it that way, but I
Yeah.
think network marketing is a legit strategy for marketing. However, you're getting your message across there, how you solve the problem that your ideal clients have, that's marketing. How you help
Absolutely.
people, that's marketing. So
Absolutely.
I hope that everybody here hears that listen, let your people go because you'll bring them back faster and stronger, and you'll build your company back, keep your business up by letting people go rather than cutting back on your marketing. And I've seen so many businesses blow through everything and then close their business because they were so intent on keeping their employees. And I get it, right? I get it. Nobody wants to be laid off. So that was really, really, I think, a really great point that you made there.
Thank
And
you.
so, and then you got into networking. So you said it a couple times, so I want you to explain it. I started networking the right way. Tell us more.
I feel like when most people start down the networking journey, they're very much, I don't know, very much is the right word, but they can be in some ways desperate, right? It is, I have to find a sale. And the only way that I can do it is by, kind of pitch slapping as much as possible and just getting out there. And that is absolutely not the right way to do it, because people will be turned off very quickly if all recognize is that you're interested in talking about you. The right way to network, and Donnie again really focuses in on this, is the give, the give, the give, and then you get, right. It's the law of reciprocity. By giving and helping other people to grow in areas maybe where they're struggling, they are more likely to think about you when it's time, right? When they find an opportunity that fits what you do because you've helped them. And so do that, in my mind, and as Donnie's been teaching, is the right way to network. It's not about what you get, it's about what you give. But by giving, ultimately you do get, and that's the right way to network.
Have you ever read the book The Go Giver?
I have. Great book.
So Bob Berg, it was one of my mentors. And as a matter of fact, I am a certified Go Giver coach. I don't talk about it because I believed in those principles long before I ever met Bob Berg, but I just thought the book was so brilliant that I wanted to be in all integrity if I was going to teach that information. But the Go Giver, he says your true worth is determined by how much value you give in relationship to how much money you make or how
Yeah.
much you take. And that does not mean that you should not charge well for your services, right?
Mhm.
It just
Right.
means you have to provide more in value than you're taking in payment. And I think that's
Absolutely.
actually the law right there.
Yep.
Law number one is provide more in value than you take in payment.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about let's talk a little bit about what really is Insignia Training Partners. What are you training people on?
Well, interestingly, I got my start 20 years ago in learning and development. I was a fresh out of college student with a marketing degree, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So naturally, I ended up in sales. I was a mortgage banker making 100
Naturally.
phone calls a day, right? Smiling and dialing. But, if we're honest, I did a lot more dialing than I was smiling. I really didn't enjoy that work. But at the time, they were creating the very first of its kind leadership development program there. And so I had the opportunity to be their first leadership development trainer. And what I focused on there was experiential learning. I was taking large groups of up and coming leaders out to ropes courses and SWAT team trainings. And we would build these full day immersive missions around the same skill sets that they used in the office to run teams, right?
Mhm.
Teamwork, problem solving, communication, strategic thinking. And it was really amazing the breakthroughs that people would have when they're dangling 3 stories up in the air by a 1-inch cord, or they have little rubber bullets flying by their head. In most cases it was, really as related to their work life, but some people really took some very personal things away from it as well. And that's what lit my fire for learning and development. And what I found was ultimately, as I continued down that path of training and coaching and mentoring, is that the process of training and teaching people is, in fact, industry, product, and service agnostic. It doesn't really matter what the widget is per se, or what the skill set is per se. There's only so many ways that people learn things, and there's only so many ways that we can deliver content. And eventually it becomes a finite cross section of delivery where you can plug and play any skill set, any subject matter, any widget, as I like to call them, into that framework. And ultimately, people learn from it. And what it ultimately really comes down to is engagement, right? Getting people engaged in what they're learning, hands-on, right? So you have people who are auditory learners, who are kinesthetic, and who are visual, right? But if you have all three of those and you integrate them properly and you get people involved in what they're doing, they learn so much better and so much faster. And ultimately, you can be teaching accounting one day or leadership development the next. I actually had a short stint where I worked for a company that manufactured mortuary, autopsy, and animal science equipment. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were
Yeah.
selling body bags and body coolers and grossing stations, embalming stations. Yeah. And part of my job was to do a little bit of education with both my internal sales team as well as the external sales team. We go out to trade shows and things like that, but following the same format that I used at Quicken Loans and I used at the call center that I worked at, we were able to teach people about all of those things. It ultimately, it doesn't matter what the topic is. It's really about the framework of teaching, right? And if you have good and well-designed training and you have well-delivered training,
Mhm.
ultimately you're going to get good results from it.
I love that. Who is your ideal client?
Oh goodness. Well, I really have three kind of personas or avatars, if you will. The first and one that I've started working with more recently is the small to medium sized business or even solopreneurs. We really excel in the virtual space, and a lot of folks are doing these master classes and free workshops you see online as a marketing activity.
Mhm.
So we've started working with a lot of these coaches, consultants, and even authors to create really engaging virtual sessions. And so that is one very specific client market that I'm going after is the independent solopreneurs and small businesses that are running workshops in Zoom or Teams, and they want to make them more engaging. The second side of that is your human resources department at most organizations are going to be tied into the organizational development and talent development within that company. So I love speaking with human resources folks as well, chief learning officers, CHROs, right? They are kind of the ones who lead me into those organizations. And then the third level is the professional services companies, companies like Conduent Learning and KPMG that are also tied in with some of these Fortune 500 companies and are working with them on a fractional basis or project basis. Those companies come to me and ask for my resources, instructional designers, facilitators, project managers, really all the parts and pieces from a human capital perspective that allow for training to be deployed.
Wow. Well, it sounds very interesting. And so, I asked you who your ideal client was, but can you be a little more specific? Like, do you sort of like one industry that you really love to work in, or is I don't have one. I love to. For me, it makes it interesting when I work with a lot of different industries. But do you have one that you like to specialize in?
You know, I don't really necessarily have one specific one. I can say that I really enjoy working with soft skills, right? So communication is a big one for me. Sales organizations typically work well, right? Because most organizations they have a some sort of training process, but it's usually in regards to the product they're selling and not as much about the delivery of that communication for that product, right? So when you're talking about communication as an example, it's made up of three parts, right? Your words, your tone, your physiology. Well, if your physiology is missing, right? Like let's say that you're all hunched over and you're not really using your body language, about 55% of your overall message is not being delivered or it's being misconstrued, right? So I really love doing soft skills type training. Also, really love, based on where I started, leadership development. And those are two things that are absolutely industry agnostic. It doesn't matter if you're selling pet food or cars, communication is an imperative skill.
All right, awesome. What's my body language say?
Very confident. You're a confident person.
Well, hell yeah, you're right. So, Bernie, I always ask somebody, like, what is your biggest tip? That's usually kind of how I end the show, but what is the biggest tip you have for entrepreneurs that could motivate them, educate them, or inspire them?
I would have to say that honestly, it's don't do it alone. I tried going it alone, even though I had plenty of resources out there, plenty of people who were more than willing to help me out with whatever it was that I needed. But I kind of siloed myself because I didn't think that people truly understood what I was going through. But the fact is that there are so many people out there running their own businesses that may be struggling or even have overcome the very struggle that you're going through. Reach out, ask for help. Don't be scared to ask for help. It's not a weakness. It is absolutely a strength because the person who fails to ask for help is likely the person who fails.
Exactly, and I think that the reason they I know, it's not even I think, I know that the reason small business owners don't ask for help often enough is because nobody lets themselves show through their authentic business, right? Because if you, as one of those entrepreneurs who's struggling, they look around and they see, oh, that person's doing well, and that person's doing well, and that person just posted how great their quarter was, and most of it's not true, right? Most of it is the truth is that every small business owner fails or struggles at some point in their business, but you don't really failure is not fatal,
No.
right? And everybody can come back from that.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think again, you have to leverage the resources that you have available to you. Don't be scared of having those conversations because in most cases, the conversation that you're most scared of having is the one you need to have most.
We have a thing that I do with my clients, and I usually do it. It's called, "What do you not want? What about you do you not want anyone to know?" Right? There's so much good information comes from that because that's where you get down into the nitty gritty and you find out really what they need. So I love that. I love the fact that you said that. So, all right. Do you have any last words for entrepreneurs, like a quote, a favorite quote or something?
Oh gosh. Well, I will give you this quote, and it's kind of in relation to marketing, or excuse me, in networking, and it's Sir Isaac Newton, and he said that if I have seen farther, it's because I have stood on the shoulders of giants, and I believe that if you leverage your network appropriately, you have all the giants you need to see as far as you need to.
Oh, I love that. And I just got on here and telling you about, I was living today on Newtonian time, right?
How about that?
You know that? Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so in the book, The Big Leap, there is Einstein time and there's Newtonian time, and you get to really decide where you're living. I like to live in Einstein time, which means I have time for everything. My day is well structured and everything falls into place as it's supposed to be. I'm never rushed for anything. When you're living on Newtonian time, as I have been today, you are rushed at I have not been on time for anything today. So, so I'm glad that you brought up Sir Isaac Newton because that's exactly where that comes from. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Bernie, thank you so much for being a podcast guest here. I know that it took us a little while to get you here, and I'm so glad that you made time for me again this week when I kind of blew you off this earlier this week for something I needed to take care of. I'm so grateful, and I'm so glad you were such a great guest. And listen, you guys, Bernie's email address is here. Um, I don't know now. I don't know how you market your business. I always ask somebody if they have a free gift for anybody. If you have something, or can they find it there, or where would they find it? Or maybe you weren't prepared for that because I probably didn't say anything.
Well, you didn't mention it, but what I am willing to do, and absolutely for free, is anyone who's looking to do a webinar, I will do a 30-minute consultation with you to review it with you and make sure that it is as engaging as possible. One of the things that people really don't do well is leverage the tool or the platform that they're in. We primarily work in Zoom and Teams, but I
Mhm.
can't tell you how many webinars I go to where people really struggle to open breakout rooms or launch polling questions or things like that. And in some cases, they don't even know that those things are available and how much they help. So I'd be happy to do a 30-minute consultation with anyone for free who's going to have an upcoming webinar or workshop just to make sure that it is engaging as it can be for you.
Well, first of all, I hope everybody heard that. And second of all, what do you normally charge for that?
Great question. So for a 1 hour event, it's just a little bit over $300. So we have a 2.5 hour minimum, 125 per hour.
So, you guys, what a great deal this is that Bernie's offering. Whoever who's ever seeing this or hearing this as it goes in, because this will, I don't know when this will be put up on Spotify. It is going out to your social media and my social media right now, but it is going to go to Spotify and live there. Will you still grant that for people who pick this up out of
Absolutely.
Spotify?
Yep. Anyone who listens to the podcast later down the line, as long as you reference that this is where you heard about us from, I will absolutely honor that and still give you the 30-minute free consultation.
Oh my
Happy to do
God.
so.
People are so silly if they do not take you up on this. Bernie, thank you so much for being here. I know I said that before, but I'm so happy that you were here today. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, June. Take care.